of the things that I've always kind of wondered about with people is how there can be people who are not like deeply romantic. Like I can't understand how a person can live without having a highly sentimental, deeply romantic sense, you know. I mean, even added to the dry, rational world too, you know. I just don't I just don't get how that can exist. It tends to lead me to think that it does, and for whatever reason, people bypass it, or for whatever reason don't use it, maybe. But then again, at the same time, there are people who end up in situations where that's all that they need for their salvation, but still are unable to access it. You know, like people in romantic situations where it's coming undone and they don't want it to come undone. All that they need is to access that romantic thing, and it can be healed, let's say. There can be new flesh beginning to grow on those bones. And since forever, human beings have reveled in connection. There is something about it that is easily of primacy in life. And if you have it, you know, you're almost free to do other things. You know, you have a kind of surplus energy to do other things. But if you have it and then you don't, then you'll notice it. All of a sudden there's a hole. Or if you never had it, there's a hole, and you've just gotten maybe used to living that way. But I think in all of us, no matter what, there is a deep desire for connection. And even just saying that, the thing that immediately runs through my head, the first thing that I think of, is all the people on Earth, and I can't help but think that each individual person probably has one person who they connect with most. You know, maybe there's thousands or even millions of people for whom each person connects with just fine, you know. I mean, nothing insane, but also perfectly likable. But I think everybody has one person for whom they connect in a completely different way than everybody else. And I just said that I was a very romantic, deeply romantic person, and you might think that me saying that is because I'm deeply romantic, and that's actually not the case. And it's only my romantic side that wishes that that were true. But I wouldn't say it if I didn't see it. I wouldn't say it if I didn't see everybody acting that way. Everybody. And if you don't believe me, just talk to anyone. Go a little bit deeper to the people who say that that's not the case. If you talk to them further and further, you'll find that the reason that they don't think that that's the case is because of some specific experiences that they had that weren't good. which is, perfectly natural. But at the same time, in a non-romantic context, we crave connection with reality in the very same way. Our senses alone are absolute and full connective tissue in all directions all the time. And in that spot where our skin meets something and touches it, or our eyes focus on something, those connections or tendrils just tighten. We always have hundreds of billions of nerve endings that make up our biology, that are reaching out into the environment and connecting and tethering straight to it. It's almost as if those nerve endings take up every atom of space around us at all times, and we can physically breathe in our surroundings. We can physically, literally breathe in the product of the atmosphere and contribute to it. We're so connected to this place that we physically breathe it in all the time, and we consume it, and it consumes us. We are constantly giving to it, and it's constantly giving to us. And we are as much it as it is us. And we are able to sense ourselves as separate, which is an immaculate ability. It gives us everything that we sense as human. Our ability to see ourselves as cut off and separate and alien and alone. And it gives us the ability to have that sensation that our experiences are perfectly unique. And they are, It's always true and untrue at the same time. They are unique, but they're within the same template as everybody else. But every template is, a little adjusted. But on the whole, we could agree, if you slap me in the face, it'll hurt. We can agree on that much. I can cook some food and not burn it, and I can eat it and say it's delicious, and you can try it too and eat it and say it's delicious, and we can agree. We can tell that much about reality. We can drive in a car and let the wind blow through, and you can stick your hand out the window and feel the wind and feel the pleasure of the air and enjoy the ride, and it's pleasant, and we can agree on that much. You can look at various styles of different people. You can listen to people speak. You can listen to somebody scream. And you can agree that some of that is pleasant and some of it is unpleasant. Some of it is terrifying and some of it is quite comforting. We all do this. We all ping. We all come to conclusions, and we like it when we come to similar conclusions, and we're kind of surprised if, or maybe even a little bit skeptical if somebody concludes otherwise. You might say something like, where have you been living under a rock, We constantly calibrate all day, every day. So long as we're around other people, people are always giving us yeses and nos, and without even saying yes or no. A person's body language is a dialect more clear than the actual words that they use. The small nuances in the face, not even just laughter, but the sort of laughter, the deep bellow that quakes through somebody, that really assures you that they're satisfied, that they have no control over that laughter. It's completely out of their hands. You've done something that made them react in an involuntary way. That's how you know it's real. Versus that kind of half laugh that barely even exists, that's social lubricant, you could say. And there's a near infinite number of things that are like that. But connection. Imagine if everybody you met, every single person you ran into told you the exact opposite of what you wanted to hear. Everything that you did was wrong. Every person that ran into you, you expected something. You did things with a certain purpose, with a certain intent. You wore things maybe to look good, you know. And every time you ran into somebody, there was absolutely no agreement on any of it. They were completely unable to determine why you did anything that you did, and there is absolutely no continuity whatsoever. Now, how would that one day end? You would probably be very, very confused. I'm talking to everybody, even the people you've known your entire life. The world never goes that way. If anything, you might get a ratio on that. 1 out of 100 might be completely confused about what you're doing. We connect with yeses and nos almost all the time. And we connect so often and so deeply and so completely that we actually notice that one time where, for whatever reason, this miscommunication happened, you know. And the deepest form of connection I think that human beings are capable of, I mean, for me, obviously, it's going to be romantic connection. And romantic connections, they don't always start out that way. I mean, half of my best friends in my life have been women, and the other half have been men. And all of my female best friends started out as best friends, but it always became romantic. And I didn't plan that, you know. It's just that with women, for me in particular, there is something deeper that's possible. And over time, I sort of have this image of myself develop where I'm a bit of a human vacation, you could say, for people. And I like that, you know. It again, like I said, isn't intentional, but there is territory in people that is untouched. In everybody. I've noticed almost everybody has spaces in them that are completely untouched. And a lot of the time these are places that those people didn't even know were for somebody else but them. A lot of the time people assume that this internal geography is only theirs and can never be seen or understood or comprehended by anybody else. And for me personally, it's like I've said in the past, some of the greatest times I've had in life were, 2 or 3 in the morning at the back of some place or somebody's back porch, just talking. Because you can connect with somebody very, very deeply. And people want that. People want that more than anything. There are some people that I've met who never got a chance to say some of the things that they've said to me for the first time. And it surprised them that they even said it. And it ends up as this relief, And it turns out people more than anything just want somebody to understand who doesn't just listen to say something back that's supposed to be reflective upon myself in a positive light, let's say. Somebody who doesn't just listen to return something about me that's supposed to be better than what you just said, or in some way is supposed to be taking from you, who actually hears what you said and wants more. Genuinely fascinated. And this isn't the case with everybody, though. And that's the strange thing. One of the more strange things that I've noticed. It's not everybody. And I can't necessarily choose who I find interesting. I can't. I can't just look at somebody and say, I'm going to be interested in them. It doesn't work that way. It's always been, of course, at first, with the eyes. I notice somebody and there's just something about them. And I wanted to know what they sounded like. You know, I see what you look like. Now I want to know what you sound like. And once I know that, I want to know how you laugh, you know, what that's like. And then I want to know more. I just want to know what you think of the world, how you see the world. How do you interpret things? And sometimes I'm just so genuinely fascinated by the existence of some people, and it ends up being a bit of a ride. And when it comes to romance, sex, that's not even on the radar. I'm the sort of person who thinks about sex in the same way that people dance to music. You only dance when the music's playing. And you don't spend your life looking for certain songs. When the music plays, you dance, you know. And that's been more than satisfying. I mean, I would say one night of that is more satisfying than 1,000 nights of anything else. It's an exclusive thing to connect with somebody. It's kind of a sacred thing, to be honest. And I have to ask, like, what else are we doing, you know, here on Earth than that? And over time, I've noticed certain things, you know, it's like those billions and billions of tendrils that are going out in each direction all the time. It's almost like the vocal cord has certain tendrils. The eyes do, and the skin does. They're all different, and even attention itself is different. And it's like some people just connect as naturally as anything could ever connect. Some people connect as though they've always been on a path, you know. And sometimes it's very strange. Like there's been things that have happened that are very strange and very hard to explain, you know. You can't just explain it by classic rationale, you know. It's almost like people have elements in play that we don't even know about yet. And that's something that I will probably spend my life trying to, like, find words for and discover and, you know, even write down maybe, is what exactly it is that brings some people together so intensely, you know, and others the exact opposite. You literally repel off each other. Like, you cannot stand even being around each other, you know. And then there will be two people like that who absolutely cannot get enough of each other, who are that to each other, you know. It's almost like there's something about our very being that repels or just brings together. And I guess the concept would be, for me personally, even the mention of the word marriage or anything like that happens in a very specific circumstance, you know, because that's not something that you just say, you know. And If I did get married, though, hypothetically, I would be fantastic at that, because I would only do that in a situation where I would be fantastic at it. And yeah, I mean, I'm definitely monogamous, but it's just been a certain sort of life. I mean, I guess I've been a welder for so long. And before that, a cook, and before that, a model. You can still live a certain sort of life, even if it's not star-studded. You know, you can still get a whole lot out of life, even with an existence that isn't exactly, red carpets and glitzy dresses and fine tuxedos. You can be a blue collar, you know, rugged dude and still live a pretty solid life. I mean, absolutely. If anything, I prefer it, because, well, what would you really do with fame? Like, do you really want to go outside and go to a grocery store and have everybody just mob you and trying to get an autograph? Like, don't you want anonymity? I love anonymity. Don't you want a situation where people approach you and feel something for you because of your existence and because of theirs? Like, don't you, I mean, imagine that extra, insane stardom or magnificent wealth, where you're always sort of questioning people's motives, and you have to lay out these kinds of tests to see if it's real. It just seems like it's a lot more simpler to have this sort of existence where you have everything you need. You work perfectly hard and everything comes to you, and you know what you want, and I mean, let's be objective here. Let me be honest. Certain things help. Let's put it that way. I mean, you can certainly have natural gifts that sort of make things easier. I mean, that situation that I described a long time ago. What if you were God? What would you do? Would you not be the tallest, most handsome dude ever if you were a dude who everybody loved and who always won and who had no problems in life and everything was great? Well, would you not start with that and eventually work the severity down all the way until you're to the point to where you're living a regular human life, where you don't know that you're God, or even a piece of God, or even divine at all, to where you're just an animal with something to discover? In that description, there are certain advantages that you can still have completely, naturally, and some that you can cultivate over your life. You can have some of those traits, and you can have the other upside of really not knowing at all fully what's happening, and still be in this situation where you actually have to find out what you are or who. What's the ideal scenario for us? Do we not want to be able to know what we think and why we think it, and do we not want to be able to examine ourselves and completely understand our motives and what we want out of life? And I've also said that nothing is going to end up more important to us than other human beings, which so far has panned out to be true. There are people that I've known for 20 years, ongoing relationships that are sometimes romantic and sometimes not, that will probably always exist because of the fact that I've resigned myself to this existence as basically a human vacation, and those people are to me, as well. But the upside of that is, there's a quote, I forget who said it, you either end up happily married or a philosopher. And I will more than likely end up a philosopher. But on that set of forks in the road, I am completely happy either way. Like, I think both of those routes are equally as satisfying. To me, they're an exact 50-50 split, each of which I would be perfectly happy to find myself within. Both of them have massive advantages, and both of them have drawbacks. And a lot of the married men that I know with children envy my position. And sometimes I envy theirs. But such is life. That's exactly how it should be. And we're living in an era, too, where it's easier to be alone and satisfied, It's easier to be completely by yourself and still basically right with the world. But at the end of the day, we're going to want to connect. There's a part of us that wants this deepest possible connection. There's always going to be that in us. If one of the worst things that I could actually think of is being married to somebody for whom I do not completely love, in that way where I know for sure there is nobody else on this planet that I would rather be with. To me that sounds like hell every day. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that. That's why I haven't gotten married. That's why it is the way it is for me. That's the reason. And some people are the exact opposite. Some people want to get married as soon as possible. I can't believe, now this blows my mind. Some people want to get married before they have met somebody they want to marry. I mean, that blows my mind. There's a lot of people like that who have it in their heads that they want to be married before they meet somebody they want to marry. Like that blows my mind. Like, I would get married if I met somebody I wanted to marry, Even though they sound like two exact inversions of each other, it is nonetheless the case. And it's strange, too, the reciprocal nature of this thing, because I feel like I carry with me the souls of all the people I've ever been truly connected to. It's like I carry pieces of them with me, and they no doubt carry pieces of myself with them. When you connect with another person like that, it's distinct. It's unlike anything in our sort of day-to-day existence. It stands out. It's memorable. It changes you, actually. And people utterly crave the deepest possible version of that. Every romantic story worth telling is predicated on that idea that suddenly these two people have met And they are essentially the same thing. They're two pieces of the same thing who broke off of the same substance and then became separated and have now rejoined. And they find this out along the way. And they're both relieved to have found each other and surprised. And even with that surprise, there's part of them that rests. There's part of them that knows that they were always there. Just not there yet. Not right before them. If you haven't had an experience like that, you probably want an experience like that. And if you say you don't, then you've had some experience that jades you to that. Even the most seemingly outward, independent person, even the person who uses other people and takes from them, at the end of the day is going to want somebody who comprehends them and understands them fully and loves them and is able to reach inside and strike chords that nobody has ever struck and make sounds and different forms of resonance that nobody has ever heard. And that's a strange thing about the internet too, like this giant door that's been opened, back when people had their proximity, had their general area, the, let's say, band of coloring wasn't as extensive. The colors were lower in resolution. You could certainly identify people who you connected with very well, but it was nowhere near as deep as what potentially existed 700 miles away. There is, in that situation, very likely to be somebody beyond you who fits with you very well. And then suddenly the internet is available and dating changes dramatically. Suddenly people are very picky. The reason people are picky is because people are waiting for a person to arrive who connects with them in this way. And as people on the internet actually were getting better and better at telling who's who without ever meeting them, without ever hearing their voice, without ever having a physical interaction, we're getting better and better at telling whether or not this person is at least somewhat suitable. But it's also clogged the pipes, so to speak, because people kind of get fixated on that notion, and people consider it settling to sort of, date somebody who's awesome, who's very compatible, but not exactly Romeo and Juliet, And I get that, man. I totally get that. But yeah, it's just gonna really depend on the sort of person that you are on that one. Because I'm the sort of person who feels very, very deeply, but from the outside looking in, you would never know it. You would think that I'm made out of stone because I don't really overtly emote, And in order to comprehend somebody like myself, I have very easily accessible outer layers. Let's put it that way. They're so accessible, and they're so well known, both to me and to people that I know, that they seem pretty deep, and they are, My outer layers can go pretty deep, but there are tunnels and corridors. There are access ways, locks, that nobody will ever access. And we all have that. We all have parts that nobody will ever see. But the evidence of those things and their existence is shown in small ways in how we behave in our personalities. They're like little signals, and you can see them. They're like little signals that let you know the nature of somebody's deeper parts. On the outermost layer, sometimes these things hook, and they hook more and more and more, and you go further and further and further, and before you know it, you're completely in love with somebody. And all you want to do is to know them. And those deeper parts that remain only known to you suddenly have somebody knocking on them. Suddenly somebody's very close. And to even have that possibility, I think, for a lot of people is horrifying. Especially in this age of independence, Nobody needs anybody these days, Nobody needs anybody. But nothing could be further from the truth. It's actually the opposite. There's a reason why people say that. People wish, desire to be able to live in a world where they didn't need anybody. But it is so completely the opposite, I couldn't even begin to put into words how the opposite of that it truly is. And for each person that exists, there is another who has parts in them so deep that nobody has ever touched, nobody has ever seen, and nobody ever will until you show up.